just spitting mad that the Dolphins kind of played their way out of the first pick to be able to take Tua, right? I mean, if this guy was not an injury risk, I'd be in love with him, but I just...
Yeah, the injuries kind of stay in the back of your mind.
I guess you can't draft scared, right? Because, I mean, Miami's had a history of that. We passed on Drew Brees because of that shoulder injury.
Yeah.
All indications were that he wanted to come to Miami, and we passed for Dante Culpepper.
With foresight, man, that's such a guy.
We saw how that worked out.
Yeah,
we saw how that worked
rough.
out. We might be...
and Culpepper's coming off a knee injury.
Yeah.
Make that make sense.
Yeah.
But, I mean, your quarterback has shoulders more important.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. So
I want to stay in that division.
Cool with me.
The New England situation. That is the most intriguing, one of the most intriguing situations this upcoming off season, because they had the greatest quarterback of all time, arguably the greatest player of all time, and Tom Brady. He's a free agent for the first time ever, and he's fucking 45 years old, damn near, for 43.
408 years old, Bryce. 408 years old.
And he's still playing. He's still eating avocado ice cream, and he's still getting 3 workouts a day in, and he's still a functional quarterback. But from all reports I've been reading and listening to, and all the different sports talk radio shows and the podcasts, everybody's thinking that he's going to be moving on. Like Ed, it's to the point now. There's a video on Twitter where he's sitting with Julian Edelman, and Edelman was saying something like, "Oh, he's coming back. And I think they're next to one of I forgot his name, Jimmy Kimmel or something like that. And Tom Brady then mouths, "No, he's not coming back." And now everybody's just like feeding into that, like, "Oh, are they talking about Brady?" It's like, I'm like, yo, this is that crazy right now.
Yeah, it's
yeah, man. Yeah, give me your thoughts on that. What are you thinking that what's going to happen with Tom Brady? Where is he going?
So I think it's one of two things. All right, let's talk about the fun one first. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why not. So I think there is a fun possibility that he goes somewhere that pays him $1 gajillion. I think he's in a household with Giselle where he is not the main breadwinner, which is funny to think about when he's made
right?
millions and millions of dollars in his career, and he is not the primary breadwinner in that household. So maybe that's a thing that he's worried about. And I think maybe he's looking for that payday for the first time. I love when you said earlier today that one of the pathways to success in the NFL is reaching a deep playoff run with a quarterback who's still young and on that rookie contract.
Right.
Because then when they demand that $50 million, $40 million, $35 million a year, whatever it's going to turn out to be, or not per year, but over the length of the contract, it's very hard to build a roster around a guy who's making that kind of money.
Right.
And Brady has been playing on a hometown discount for most of his career. That's why he's, I think I said 408 years old and is now entering the league as a unrestricted free agent for the first time. So very interesting. So it could be fun to think that maybe somebody like Vegas, right, the Las Vegas Raiders, trying to make a splash in their new city, throw $1 gajillion at him, and he takes it.
Right.
I have this sinking suspicion, though, that watching Brady over the last few years, he seems to know what he's doing with social media, right? He seems to know how to create that brand and to get interest around him, right? Like almost like all press is good press, right? Even if it's something. And I think he knows what he's doing, and I think he might be trolling all of us, right? All this talk about him and Belichick's relationship.
I wouldn't be surprised.
How bad could it be winning, 6 Super Bowls together?
6 of them
going
things.
to like 10 of them in the last 2 decades? I mean, what are we talking about here? Is it that hard for them to coexist? I don't think so. I think Brady probably retires in New England, if for no other reason. It's just to bother me as a guy that follows the Dolphins and Bills. He'll probably go on to play another 6 years in New England and continue his reign of terror over the AFC East. I wouldn't doubt it. That avocado, it's delicious, first of all, and apparently it's keeping him in good shape. But ultimately, if I'm being serious for 1 second, I think he comes back to New England. I really do. I wish I had a more fun take on it, but I think he sticks with New England. Unless it's one of those things where he either wants to make that kind of big boy money or he wants to win another one and doesn't feel that the Patriots put a team around him that's capable of winning. The one thing that I will say is he had some frustration last year that seemed legitimate about the talent that was around him. They replaced Gronk with essentially no one in that role, and it took a toll on that offense, right? Brady was not the same Brady that he was in the past, but my hot take is that he sticks with the team that he's played for 1,000 years.
You know, man, I was thinking that a lot as well. Like, that's been my main thing. Like, all the reports coming out, Brady, he's moved his family to Tennessee, and he might sign with the Titans, and Indianapolis Colts are looking into him, and the LA Chargers, they're moving to, this new stadium, and they want to have like a big name to market it, and the Oakland Raiders are moving to Las Vegas, and signing Brady could definitely sell tickets. And I was just like, yeah, I'm knowing all that. And that's bullshit. He's going to remain in New England. Why would you leave there? He owns that city. He owns that team, and blah, blah, blah. But then as like it keeps getting closer and I keep hearing these different reports, man. And my main thing is like, it's coming from very reliable sources, very reliable people like the Adam Schefters, the Jason La Canforas, like all respected names in football media. And I'm hearing them multiple different times. And I'm just, I'm not going to lie, it swayed my mind. I'm at the point where I'm thinking that it's a new era that's about to take place in New England. Cause it's one of those things where you don't want to see it. It's one of those things like, this player is never going to leave that team. But it has happened in the past. Like, we've seen Joe Montana leave the San Francisco 49ers thinking that he would never leave, but he went to play a season with Kansas City. We've seen Jerry Rice go on to different teams. We've seen, for my team, Ed Reed, a Baltimore legend, go on to play for different teams. So there's always been those legendary type players that have moved on to different teams. And Tom Brady is probably the best of the best, right? To be in this position. And I'm on the fence. I'm at this point where I'm thinking that he definitely has played his last game in New England. And the team I'm thinking, the team that kind of makes the most sense to me is the Los Angeles Chargers, for all the reasons of he wants to live on the West Coast. As him and his wife Giselle, she's a supermodel. Obviously they got the connections there. And I think at this point, Tom Brady is thinking beyond just football. I'm thinking that he wants to go ahead and expand the TB12 brand, and what better area to do so than in LA? I'm thinking that LA is going to be the destination that ultimately Tom Brady decides to go to. And on top of that, you look at their football team. They're a very well built football team. Like, they have good weapons on the offensive side. Their defense is pretty solid. You got two defensive studs in Derwin James and Bosa. Yeah, man, I'm thinking that Tom Brady is going to be an LA Charger when it's all said and done, and it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird as shit to see.
Yeah, I think that's part of the fun in having this conversation, is just imagining all these players that we're about to talk about in these different jerseys, right?
Yes.
Because leaning on that, if we're making another segue there, you could talk about the LA Chargers, right? Because if you're saying that Brady is going to be an LA Charger, well, what does that mean? That means our boy, Phillip Rivers, the trash-talkingest, rootinest, tootinest cowboy in the West, is moving
game
on.
Is on zero.
That's right. He has 14, 15 kids running around. I'll tell you what, he knows the names of all of them. He seems like that kind of guy. I think it's been with one incredibly stretched out lady, but he is moving on as well. So that's actually official, right? They've actually come out and said
they said that the relationship is that's done. Like, he's no longer going to be a Los Angeles Charger.
Right. So that is not one that we have to speculate on. He is definitely out. So pretty cool. Pretty cool to see Phillip Rivers moving on to a different team. Where do you think he ends up?
So with Phillip Rivers, he has moved his family to Florida. And with that, like, all the speculations was coming out, Tampa Bay. Jameis Winston had the season that he's had, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions.
Join the 30-30 club.
They about to do a 30 for 30 for him.
not in a good way, though.
Famous Jameis.
He's got that LASIK, though, now.
What if
he
told
can see
you
now.
A quarterback kept his team in every game, but also kept every other team in every game?
I can hear that. That's the catch. That's definitely the tagline in that movie.
But I'm thinking, from what I've been reading reports now about Phillip Rivers, is that Indy is the team. Where, like, Indianapolis, obviously they want to try to bring in another veteran quarterback to kind of compete with Jacoby Brissett. They've also been in talks of maybe being one of those teams that can trade up to go get one of these quarterbacks, or potentially if one falls to them, that they go ahead and draft one there. But I definitely see Indianapolis as a team that Phillip Rivers would ultimately end up on. And you look at their roster, they're a very well built team. Like if Andrew Luck didn't just suddenly retire, you would probably pencil them in as, first of all, the winners of the AFC South, and then also potentially getting to the AFC Championship game to go compete against, Baltimore, KC, whoever the team that is going to be there. But that retirement happens. Indy's a very interesting team with me because I'm thinking like they signed Phillip Rivers, but I'm also hearing a lot of reports that they're trying to persuade Jim Irsay is trying to persuade Andrew Luck to come back. So
I could totally see that they're trying to persuade him.
It's weird as shit, yo.
I don't know that he comes back though. I think so. What I was reading on Andrew Luck is that I read a lot about Andrew Luck through his father, Oliver Luck, who's been in the news because of the XFL.
Right.
He's either the commissioner or whatever that position is he's one of the higher ups in the XFL. And so through that, you learn a little bit. You talked about his son Andrew just having a kid. I think Andrew Luck, he's a smart guy. Everyone knows that. They talked about him throughout his career as one of the smartest players in the NFL. I think he knows what he's doing. He made his millions. I think he's content living life. I don't think you see Andrew Luck coming back.
Yeah.
With that being said, if we're talking about Indianapolis then as potential landing points, I think they do want to move on from Jacoby Brissett. I think he did an admirable job filling in there. There's no doubt about it. I 100% respect to him, but I don't think he's your long-term answer, nor would I think that anyone else really had that thought, that Jacoby Brissett is the future, right? I don't see that. So another guy, interesting there, I had in my chicken scratch here, I'm looking down, I see Rivers next to Indy, and I also see Teddy Bridgewater. That's another guy that had some success with a team that was already built for success in the New Orleans Saints, went 5-0 as a starter, incredible. While
looked
Drew Brees,
really good, too.
And he looked excellent, right? It looks like all that injury history might be behind him, and he might be one of those sneaky guys that could be in that third position, right? That third idea of how do you find success at quarterback. You pick up a guy that hasn't really had that opportunity to shine yet, and you bring him in. And I think Indianapolis, with Frank Reich at head coach and that roster that's built for success, that could be a real landing spot for Teddy Bridgewater. And if Rivers doesn't go there, if that's not the idea, maybe it's Teddy. I think that's a move I could totally see.
That's a real possibility as well, man. For Teddy, He's one of those. I really can't find a team for him, honestly, because I like your Indy thought, and that's a very legitimate thought there. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did bring him in. And I was trying to just look at other teams of who he can go to and be compete for a starting job. And I was looking at LA. I was looking at the Chargers. I think that could be a team that he can ultimately go to if the Chargers can't bring in Tom Brady. I was thinking about Oakland because they might, or not Oakland no more, the Las Vegas Raiders. I got to get used to saying that now.
I'm still saying the San Diego Chargers sometimes.
I'll be slipping up sometimes too. So I was thinking about Vegas, and that's a team that, from all media reports, they're in the market for a quarterback. They're not really sold on Carr.
It's interesting. Very interesting, man.
It is.
Looking at it, the only other spot that I had them written down was the Carolina Panthers.
Carolina, what do they do with Cam Newton?
What do you do with Cam Newton, right? That's another question. Cam coming off of, essentially a few bad seasons now since his MVP caliber season that he had a few years back, coming off an injury, a new regime there with Ron Rivera being gone. We don't know what the new regime is going to think of Cam.
Right.
That might be a very attractive trade to a team that's looking for a veteran that could step in and play right away. I think the Panthers are a year or two away, but they're built on defense and running the football, kind of the same way the Saints were, right? The Saints were no longer that crazy downfield passing team that they were back when they had, Joe Horn and Marquez Colston and Breeze in his prime that were flinging the ball all over the field for 5,000 yards. They're a little bit more of a run first, play defense, check down, played right into Bridgewater's hands. I think, you might find something like that in Carolina where he can feel comfortable dumping the ball off 10 times a game to Christian McCaffrey, right? So that's the only reason I had him listed there for Carolina, but that's all circling around what do they do with Cam Newton there, right?
Yeah, and the Cam thing is interesting because Matt Rule came out and said that he's looking forward to having Cam as a starting quarterback. Now, how much of that is true? You know what I mean? It's a new regime, and what we know from history is that when a new regime comes in, they typically want their own guy at quarterback, not what they've already had. Typically. Now, there are some scenarios where they do keep the quarterback that's in place and kind of build around that. Now, Cam is getting older. He's only he's going to be like 31, 32 years old, and the injuries have definitely been piling up.